Welcome back, and today you will be forced to witness
Maximum
Su-47 fighting mostly itself, but also other things, and some base notes.
Sammy, please listen to the call!
pull up.
In the previous part of this journey of getting an Su-47 Berkut into the air, we encountered many difficulties. But one thing we have not touched at all were the weapons. You see, I'm not particularly into fighting and much more into, well, I suppose in a distant way, something we could call rallying. Thus, what you are about to witness today, I can guarantee is content that you have never seen before. First, many improvements were made regarding air-to-air refueling and the working drag chute. Especially regarding the drag chute, I wanted to put all the work into making a great drag chute. But after many hours of making multiple bone chute working, it turned out DCS uses only 3 frames from the entire animation. I mean, why? Why is it so important to make my life miserable to this game? But most importantly, a book. Yes, I have managed to find a book. Look at the size of that. You would be surprised that this is not the gold mine I was hoping for, nor does it contain any classified information about the plane, which is actually mentioned by the author. Which, let's be honest, is the second best way of preventing yourself suddenly falling out of a window. Anyway, it does provide a lot of information on the armaments of Su-47, so this should definitely come in handy when it comes to the merge. The main armaments, according to the book, written by Jeff M. Gordon, is the R-77 missile with active radar guidance and modified to fit into the weapons bay. The only slight issue is that this directly collides with this pamphlet about Su-47 that we have seen in the pilot of this series. Because according to that pamphlet, the Su-47 only had a frontal weapons bay for different missiles. So, this will be an issue that we will have to engineer our way out of. You see, when I was creating the script for the first episode, I cut off a small portion that I have called Biased Boys, where I proposed the idea of mounting the AL-41F engine to the Su-47, giving Mr. 47 even more power with 173 kN of thrust on each engine. But I decided to scrap that to not be that much more ridiculed. But, according to this book, the AL-41F was actually supposed to be installed on the Su-47 later on. You do realize what that happens to mean. That means my proposal was not completely bonkers when we get to the flight model department.
Toyota.
We have to at least think about implementing that. But now, how are the weapons? Even better, where are the weapons? Perhaps no weapons. Basically, the Su-47 is the Agent 47 of the fighter jet world. One shot, one kill. All luck, no skill. So how do we set up the weapons bay in the Su-47? Well, it's time to spend some time in a shed and figure it out. After many milliseconds. So this is how I went about it, pretty much going with the original model idea and only fighting a fitting missiles, so we have 3 weapons bays. Smaller, one in the front, and 2 longer ones in the back. So what is the total number of MRAMs of the Russian equivalent R-77 others? 6. 3 in each of the rear weapon compartments, since the one in the front is just way too small and the only thing I can fit is a small missile, like for example R-73, the Sidewinder equivalent. But let us not forget that we still have 2 pylons on each wing for additional weapons, so we will be able to carry additional weaponry if necessary, but 6 missiles with 2 smaller close-range solutions, that is not bad. So now it's time to add this theory into DCS. Just a simple missile test. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, off blast.
Radar failure. EOS failure. ACS failure.
Well, it could be worse. And then
Hydraulic
it got
failure.
worse.
Radar failure. EOS failure. ACS EOS failure.
At this point, what is just happening?
Failure.
But at the last moment, the Su-47 manages to slow the fall down. Let me just say that nothing ever goes right on a first try on this journey. Nonetheless, the cost turned out to be a collision model. You see, this is what I have been working on for now quite some time, and that is to have a collision model so that you can actually be able to hit or to be able to poke at the airport's windows. This on its own was difficult because of the way too many elements. Now, it means that we have to cut a hole in the collision model for the missiles. I mean, it's not the most precise handiwork, but it gets the job done, and now you can launch R-77 without issues, unless you do it under negative Gs, with launch authority override. The bigger problem turned out to be the two small R-73 missiles in the front, because they are not known for being what is called a free-fall missile. You see, the R-77 falls out of a weapons bay and then activates, but the R-73 doesn't, which means that we need a solution. So it's back to the shed, and next morning, after a lot of handiwork, yes, I had to rotate the missile slightly downward to compensate for the fact that we just cannot remove the nose of the aircraft. But let's not get bogged down with the collision model of the Su-47, but let's focus on the collision model of the F-16, which is on the exact other end of the island, the Falklands Islands to be exact, as we are. And we are going to attempt what is known by people who think they could fly a fighter jet in real life as BVR combat, beyond visual range. Basically, you do not need to understand much here. The only thing that you need to know is that down here, this is radar, which shows you the enemy contacts, and friendly contacts too, which should be important to mention, and that this HUD symbology basically tells us where the radar is, where is my designating rectangle, which I move to the airplane that I want to shoot down, and then I only have to press enter to lock it up. And then once it's locked, I see these three arrows, which basically tell me when I can shoot the missile. And then you shoot the missile, and in theory, you should take the fighter jet down. If you have an itchy trigger finger, like me, and you have fired the missile immediately, the F-16 actually isn't going to fire the missile at all, and instead, it's just going to go defensive, which means that it's pretty much committing a suicide, while thinking how smart it is. Questionable decision making, yes. So now that the regular ways of DCS have been sorted, it is time to do what we do best on 47 gear: rallying. And whether it's forwards or backwards, doesn't matter. We thrive in the corners and dominate the jumpy straights. And this is the real merge of this episode. For the first time, let the aviation and rallying become one. Obviously, to do that, we need pace nodes and a canyon or a fjord. Now there is an important difference in canyons and fjords. Fjords, thanks to being created by melting of a glacier, leave us with a very nice sea level altitude at the bottom. Thus, should we be creating pace nodes for fjords only, they would not have to be very different than the ones used in regular rallying. But then there is a canyon, where altitude of the bottom varies quite a lot and needs to be addressed by the pace nodes. Creating a good pace node system is going to be a challenging task, and due to this, for now, we will use the green guidance square as a temporary solution, since let us not forget that in Su-47 you sort of do not have a co-driver who could read you the pace nodes, and reading them yourself as you plunge into canyon at Mach 1 is widely not recommended.
Fast, sharp right, sharp right.
Obviously, now it's the time to send it. And for the first time, things didn't go terribly wrong. finally a thing we can do well on a first attempt. But they do add the thrill, since you now have to pass the small area at high speed. Unlike if we would just focus on optimal line in the canyon itself, that is rather slow, since the wider the track, the less thrilling and fast the flight appears. And thus, only few locations would actually be ideal for this type of stuff. But the squares make almost any fjord or canyon fun. Now obviously, this was just a minor segment to slowly introduce you to this concept. So anyways, the next segment would be the question of when is the Su-47 fella coming out. Well, right now there's a lot implemented, but I would like to create a trailer and one final pre-release video, in which we would probably do some top, or better bottom gun stuff, i.e. naval operations. Once these two pieces of media would be released, the mod would follow with them. And on this literally bombshell, it might be time to end. Goodbye.